And we're live. Hello. Well, I was going to say happy Tuesday. It's Wednesday. The life of a mama. It's Wednesday today. Hope you all are doing fabulously. I always say this every time. I'm so excited for this episode, but I really truly am excited for all of them, but maybe a little extra excited because I'm talking to a fellow singer and recording artist and author, like the full package. So, without further ado, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to read you Buick's official bio. We're going to bring her in and just chat. So please feel free to share your comments or questions in the chats. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, we're here for you and we're willing. We are. So here we go. Buick is a Grammy Award-winning musician and writer living in Nashville, Tennessee. She is the guitarist and primary songwriter and vocalist in the melodic heavy duo Friendship Commanders. I love that. Melodic heavy duo. So good. It's very rock. I love it. Her new solo album, Conversations with My Other Voice, was released on September 23rd of this year. And the album is accompanied by a set of memoir-style essays by the same name. It is so good. I stayed up all night one night reading it and I couldn't put it down. So without further ado, here is the lovely Buick. Hello, girl.
Hey, Jill, how are you?
I'm doing great. I just so appreciate you and I'm so excited to chat with you. And I have, like I told you before we met, like 1,000 questions for you. But I want you to settle in before I rapid fire you. So what is the day in the life of a singer-songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee, who writes rock music? What does that look like? What have you been up to today so far? Let's just ease
Well,
in.
actually, today's been kind of a mixed bag because as you so kindly said in the intro, I released a book and an album at the same time this time around, which was the first time I've ever taken on such a thing.
Yeah.
So right now I'm still trying to get both into different channels and promote them. They don't really belong to the same worlds, even though they're the same project, you know?
Right? Isn't that fun? I know.
Yeah, so lately it's been a little different. Normally it's like, I do have two projects. I have my solo project under my own name, and then I play in Friendship Commanders, which was primary for years. And I think you've read at least some of my books, so you kind of know what
Oh,
that was
yeah.
about. And Friendship Commanders are about to release some music very soon as well. So
Ooh,
I'm sort of all over the place, but
yeah.
I wish it were more exciting than it is. We did shoot a video over the weekend, and that was really exciting. So the day in the life was like 11 hours in a studio with assorted guest performers, kind of doing a little bit of a narrative thing, but then also doing
Yeah.
like performance shots of the song.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but right now it's a lot of like, please carry my book in your cool independent store, or please review my thing, or please add this song to this playlist, which is not exciting at all, but it's how it works.
That's how it works. You gotta put yourself out there, you know that. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's a grind, but sometimes, there's
It
beautiful
is.
moments. The creation of the art, that's where the joy comes in, and that's what you focus on. So,
Yeah.
um, this is the platform where we're gonna bring all your work together because the
Yay.
the thing the thing that I love most that I've been it's kind of taken me on a journey, this podcast. At first I was like, authors, can we talk to authors? Of course we can. It's voice. So
Yeah.
it's really, even for me who likes to think of the interconnected voice, there's still even more layers being presented. I mean, it's just really being human. That's what it is. The voice is
Yeah.
very attached to our human selves. So anything we
Yeah.
do with our human selves, it makes sense. So here's the question for you. I'm just going to dive into your beautiful, beautiful conversations with my other voice.
Thank you.
Book and album. Tell me about how this came to you because that's a huge, huge
Yeah.
undertaking.
When
Huge.
when you reached out and you were talking about your project in voice, I was like, "Boy, have I got a thing for you."
I know you do. I know you do.
Do I
Oh,
have a couple files for you? Um,
yeah.
so the project in concept was organic and a little bit smaller in its initial
Mm.
sort of idea. As I write in the book, I had been away from my music for a long time, my solo music, but I would have these flashes. I had a recurring dream about not knowing how to play my solo songs anymore, and it was really a
Oh.
grief-filled kind of nightmare. And then just every once in a while, I would have kind of like a shudder of like, "Oh, I'm too far away," even though I Friendship Commanders has taken me into so many places that I never
Mhm.
dreamed I would go, and it's really been an incredible part of my creative development, and I'm so grateful for it. But there was this other piece of me, this solo project that I had really packed up and put away, and I would kind of privately miss it. And I thought, well, I'll just go back. There were these 5 songs that told the stories of some really pivotal moments in my personal life. And I thought, let me go
Mhm.
back to those 5 and I'll just kind of I'll just record them with some friends and put them up on the DSPs and not make a big deal about it. I was really playing small with it, even to myself, just being like, I'll just honor them, whatever that means, whatever honoring something means.
Yeah.
Um, and it just started to kind of take on a life of its own. Like I was like, oh, I got the songs out and played them, and I was like, these are great songs, and I had really loved them when I'd written them, but they were so far from who I was at the moment that I was sitting down and
Yeah.
playing them again. Friendship Commanders plus just life had really changed not only my physical voice, but just the person I am in my stories now.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, this is kind of weird. This is like a retrospective, which is kind of a weird thing to be like, I've been away from my work for a long time. Here are 5 old songs. Like it's just it's kind of a
Yeah.
weird presentation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought, let me like update what happened, because so much time had passed between the time that I had written those particular pieces and the way I felt about those stories now,
Mhm.
that I was
Mhm.
like, let me say that. Let me dig in, and so the original 5 songs are the odd numbered tracks on the project, and then my responses to each of them are the even numbers. So when you and I
That
emailed,
is so cool.
you
That is
mentioned
so cool.
thank you. You mentioned Pocket Sized Friend, which is the
Oh,
second
yeah.
track on the song, and that really was, like, such a cathartic way to respond to that story, to just hold my own now from
Yeah.
here with that relationship and that
I
narrative.
had that song on repeat for half an hour before I noticed, and I was like, "Jill, you gotta listen to the whole album, move on."
Thank you for saying that.
That's brilliant.
So that's how it shaped up as an album, and then I was like, "There's more here." Like, the stories are told on the
Mm.
album, but then I was like, "These were kind of big deal events," like,
Yeah.
and my life has been kind of singular, even though I think the stories of rejection and
Oh
even
gosh.
even
Yeah.
abuse or whatever the through lines ended up being, these are universal realities and feelings and stories. But I was like, who gets kicked out of their house at 13 and goes
I
and lives
know.
with some, you know what I mean? Like, it
It
just
was
was,
just unbelievable. Like,
yeah, it's
it
kind
just kept
of
getting
unbelievable.
like, "What? More? What? More?" Oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
so much love to you and your younger self, because
Thank
geez,
you. Thank you.
wow.
Yeah, so it's like the kind of thing where when they're your stories, you're kind of used to them. I've always known that I was kicked out
Mm.
at 13 and spent 2.5 years in Miami, and that didn't seem strange to me until I was an adult myself, and then I was like,
Yeah.
"That's wild that that happened and that that was allowed?" Like,
Oh, wow.
and so I thought, let me I had written some personal essays, and I considered myself a writer even though I had never written a body of work. I kind of knew I had it in me, and I thought, if
Mhm.
I tell these stories one more time, because only like my husband and a couple close people to me really know most of those stories. Most people didn't know I had Grammys. I just never talked
Yeah.
about that stuff, for
Yeah.
for assorted reasons, mostly based in shame. Um, I thought, let me just tell these in one place, and then I'll never have to tell them again. They'll live somewhere, I won't even have to hold on to them anymore.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, not to get too out in front of it, but the work has been out for about 2.5 weeks, and I feel like a different person.
Let's dive into that, because this is where we're going. This is the stuff that I just can't get enough of. So you said a few things. You feel like a different person. Your
Yeah.
voice changed big time. So can you unpack that for us? What has changed now that you've just been like, if whoever's watching out there, if you haven't read this, it is so honest in the most delicious, inspiring way you can be honest. So what has changed for you? How would you explain that to someone?
I just feel like I had been waiting to say all of those things, not just to
Mm.
tell those stories, but to then share what I think about it now. Um,
Mm.
I had been waiting to say all of that for so long that when I said it in a way that felt both honest, as you say, but like I also didn't hang myself out to dry. Like I had
Yeah.
also weirdly protected myself in the telling of those stories and stood up for myself. And that seemed like such a huge accomplishment for myself even before the work went into the world. I was like, I think I
Mhm.
did this. I think I did this correctly for me as a creative person. But then beyond that, now that it's out, I mean, it's nice to hear that people love it, and so many people have been incredibly kind, and the reviews have been incredibly kind of both the record and the book.
Mhm.
Um, but I just feel at peace, and that is
Wow.
not a word that I use liberally. I'm not a live, laugh, love. I'm not a you've read my work. I tend to be very dry and very blunt, and I sort of lean on the darker side of things,
Mhm.
but I really feel lighter. Like I put it somewhere where it can live, and it now no longer lives in me to the extent that it did for like my whole life.
So, for you, is your art healing or just cathartic? What or both? What would you say about the process of art? I know some artists are on the fence about if it's healing or not, and I'm curious for you. What would you say
Um,
about it?
I have released 2 projects in my life that I would call healing. This is one of them,
Yeah.
and the other is an EP that my band Friendship Commanders released in April of 2020 called Hold On to Yourself, that is about being an adult survivor of childhood abuse.
Wow.
And both of those projects for me were like it's not just about saying like, "Oh, I was this happened to me," or "I was abused." It's about being like, I'm still alive, you know? And I wear a necklace every day that says "still alive" that I had made after that
Wow.
record came out, um, because it is a reclamation of self. So it's freeing to tell the stories because the shame is such an incredible burden in this life. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible, you know?
Yeah.
Um, that's one part of it, but another part of it is the dignity of being like, I'm able to do this. I'm able to articulate in a way that both is true for me and that seems to connect to other people who have lived remarkably different lives, but they
Mhm.
get on some level what I'm talking about or what I'm expressing.
Mhm. Oh, it's just so good. Um, so my question to you then, because a lot of our viewers are going to wonder, when you write a memoir and even song lyrics, you're so afraid of, outing people in the stories and what will they think and what will so and so think of me? I shouldn't release this art over here and I should maybe do this and all the shoulds, right? And then
Yeah,
there's the shame piece again. So, what would you say your experience was with telling those stories with the characters in them
yeah.
and how you worked through that, "No, this is mine, and I have the right to share it."
I have a couple things to say about that. Those are
Yeah.
great questions and sub-questions.
I know.
I tell you what, I think
Thank
there's
you.
a parrot across the street in the yard from me right now, which is
That is
kind of
awesome.
kind of a wild part of this moment you and I are sharing.
That must be some kind of woo-woo sign for us. I don't know. Parrots, they're very vocal,
I
aren't
know.
they? Yeah.
Yeah, and just
Hmm.
rare to see sitting around I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, everybody. Um, so anyhow, so telling the story. So I started writing the book right after we recorded the album. I thought, oh, at first I thought I'll write these essays. I don't know what I thought. I think I thought I'd write these essays and I would like just put them online somewhere. I don't know that I always thought it was
Mm.
exactly a memoir. I thought I would write 1,000 words about each song or something. And it went through a lot. I probably wrote the opening essay, which is called the melody. Each essay corresponds to a song on the album. I probably wrote that essay 15 times over the course of 3 years.
Mm.
Just finding my way into that piece was so difficult for me in a way that was like, how do I say that I got to Miami without I think as survivors of abuse, sometimes some of us feel like we can't name what happened to it. We have to kind of move around it. And my parents, I have 3 parents and they're all alive, which is a significant part of this book being in the
Yes.
world for me.
Yes.
None of
Yes.
them have acknowledged this work, which is par for the course.
Wow. Wow.
No one in my family has. My brother didn't order the book, but congratulated me on the album. Every other member of my family, extended or otherwise, has largely pretended this hasn't happened, which is a couple of
Wow.
things, but
It's fitting with the book. If
it
you've read the
is
book,
fitting with
it's
the
fitting
book.
with the book.
Yeah,
So
I tell the truth in that book
you
because
do
here
tell
we
the truth.
are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so the thing about writing the essays was like I sat down and I just wrote it all, like the whole truth, names, every terrible facet. It didn't all belong in there, and I knew that, but I also
Yeah.
knew that first drafts were often just sort of like for yourself, like, okay,
Yeah.
because I'd never written it all out before, like, let's get the lay of the land and the timeline. And the original manuscript in pieces was 55,000 plus words. The book
Wow.
that you read is 30,000 words. So I almost cut it
Oh,
in
in
half.
half.
Yeah, I almost cut it in half over 3 years.
Wow.
And there were a couple of things that I did. If you've read the book, you know that I name certain people in the book and not others. So I named Joss
Yes.
Stone because I felt like it was impossible to tell that story without saying who it was
Yeah.
because of our
Yeah.
Grammys together. It just didn't make any
Yeah.
sense to be like coyly like, guess who it is though? I mean, it just is that's
Yeah.
an absurd I couldn't make that work for myself.
Yeah.
Um, and I did my best to tell the story without talking about Joss's life in any capacity really, or
Yeah.
exposing any of the many things I came to know about her individually that didn't belong to the story,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
really tried to do that throughout the work, but most of the other people I don't actually name. So I don't name my first husband, I don't name the engineer who told me I was tone deaf over the course of many years. Um,
That person, oh,
yeah.
I'm still my head's reeling. I don't even know. Anyway.
Yes. And some of that was it wasn't fear-based, it was more just that I didn't want to give them power. It was like, by
Ah,
naming
nice.
some people, you make
Yes.
them bigger still,
Yes.
and I wanted to be
Yes.
like, "You don't even get a name in this
An
story. You
engineer.
you are the
Done.
engineer."
I'm gonna slow clap to that one. Yes.
And if people wanna
Awesome.
figure it out, it's a 2-second investigation into who I worked on my first 2 albums with, you know what I mean? Like, you
Right,
can
exactly.
figure that out on your own. I don't need
Yep.
to say it. It's like Beetlejuice. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't wanna say his name, you know what I mean? I don't
Oh,
want
I
him back in my life.
oh,
So,
Beetlejuice, love that.
the other piece of it was talking about the things that happened to me without dishonoring other people or dishonoring people who intersected with my story, like my brother,
Yeah,
without telling too he gave me permission to talk about his incarceration. So he's the only
yeah.
person whose permission I asked, by the way.
I was gonna
Um,
ask you if you have to ask permission in a memoir, if that's something that no. Okay.
no, no,
Awesome.
although I did legally protect myself in some areas.
Yeah.
So my line for how to tell these stories, this was the tool that I used
Love
for
it. Share
memoir
it.
writers out there.
Yeah.
If you did it to yourself, meaning someone's, self-destructive behavior or addictions or whatever their own stuff was that contributed to the difficulty of my personal experience, it's yours. It doesn't belong to me. And I say that in the introduction to the book. I say,
Uh-huh.
some of the stuff doesn't belong to me and it's not in here.
Yeah.
But if you did it to me, it's mine. So
Yes.
if you abused me and there's a clear abuse pattern that is not just one fluke thing or a misunderstanding, if you repeatedly mistreated me or hit me or whatever the thing is, I unfortunately have endured a bunch of different kinds of abuses, mostly in my adolescence and childhood. It's mine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to name that, because I don't see the benefit in dancing around that and trying to tell a story of how I developed these attitudes and beliefs about myself and about the world where I don't talk about the fact that I'm an abuse survivor. It just doesn't
Right.
work,
No,
you know?
no. It's leaving much of the conversation on the shelf,
It is.
and those formative years especially, they mold a lot of who you become, so,
Yeah.
you have so many great lines about this. Oh, I had to stop myself. I was writing down, like,
Oh,
what
thank
did you
you.
say about, the mind dulls the blades? It's, I'm
Yeah,
gonna forget.
dulls the edges of the blades I've known. Yeah.
Thank you. I was like, "Damn, that needs to be, like,
Yeah.
one of those things you share all over the internet," because yes, we can often demean our stories or in your case, question if it actually happened because people
Gaslight
in your life
ourselves.
told you it didn't happen that way. You're not
Yeah.
remembering it right.
And also, I
Huh.
think it's a cultural sort of behavior, a problematic one, to be like, "Oh, but it's, but you're strong now and you're okay now." And, all of these
Oh.
sorts of toxic responses to injury, that I just think I had so many of them happening at one time, both within my own self and from the outside, that
Mm.
I just would diminish. I mean, that scene that happened in the basement of that wedding event, I mean, I put that away for a long time because other people put it away,
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, I guess, oh,"
We're
it's
not talking about
odd.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't get any billing. Okay,
Wow, 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 wow. So the voices of others, and I know this is a big one for me because my voice just shut off, but the voices of others and taking that on as ours.
Yeah,
I want you to just talk a little bit about those beliefs that you gained throughout your life
yeah,
around your voice specifically or your identity for that matter because our voice is so tied to our sense of self.
it
Talk
is.
about some of those key messages. I know there's so many in the book, but if you can pick a couple that you could share with folks of this is something I picked up. This is when I realized I picked it up, and this is when I dropped it.
Mm, those are big questions. Let me think.
Mhm.
Well, aside from the technical stuff, in the book, I talk a lot about on the front end of the book about, being told. First of all, I speak up about being an abuse survivor at like age 16. And so when we talk about voice as
Yeah.
I'm giving voice to an experience that I had. So,
Mhm.
voice not necessarily being a noun, but something that has much more movement. Um, I really took on this idea that I was too much, and that
Mm.
anytime I opened my voice to I really have had, like, a hypervigilance in my life, in my own body and in my own system, and it's made me an activist, it's made me an advocate for my own survival. It's wildly unpopular in my family,
Mhm.
and it has been. It's unpopular right now as we sit here together. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
voice, and I open the book with a discussion about voice, and talking about I once heard this music producer talk about that he thought the people with the most interesting singing voices had to advocate for themselves at some point in
I'm
their
so glad you brought
adolescence.
that up. That was where we're going next. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
Keep
and
going.
so for me, like, I did advocate for myself, and they were like, "No,"
Yeah.
which is such a couple times. I advocated for myself as a young kid. I was almost killed in a wild car experience, and then I talked about being abused, and
Yeah.
both times the same sets of people were like, "Oh, that's, you're trying to get attention or you're," so my identity became one of like, "You're too much," and also somehow
Mhm.
simultaneously not enough.
Wait, wait, how does that work? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a wild set of messages, and so I carried that with me into every dynamic that I took on in my
Mm.
life. So with the engineer, with woman friendships, certainly in my first marriage, and
Mhm.
I try to take responsibility for showing up to relationships in such a way where I was sort of offering myself up as too much or not enough, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and
Mhm.
boy, did some dynamics really do additional harm,
Oh.
and, um, I think it made me self-conscious to the point of being ineffective,
Yeah.
both as a sort of witness. of my own story. And then also as a singer, it just made me so, by the time I was ending my relationship with Joss, I was like, am I a singer? Like, I really went to a
Oh.
place of like, did I get this wrong? My whole, like, am I, and that was just, she was just mean, it just turned
Yeah,
out she was
yeah,
mean, which was like,
yeah.
I hadn't even,
I didn't see that coming.
I didn't see that coming either, and, it took me a long time to get to a place where as I talk about, like, I had to listen back to those recordings years later and be like, "Oh, she's just mean. She just was
Yeah,
being, cruel, and she had power, and she used it to hurt me,"
yeah,
and,
yeah.
that is not something that I was wired to expect for
No,
whatever reason. I wasn't in that
no.
space, so voice, I advocating for myself became tiresome, and I eventually was like, I can't hold this up anymore. Like, this idea
Mm,
of myself has become so mired in other problems and ideas that I'm just going to not do this. And that's when I started Friendship Commanders and stopped using my name and stopped
uh,
singing those songs. And what happened in Friendship Commanders was as surprising as anything else, because I just became like twice the vocalist. I
that's
went s
cool.
I went so hard away from what I had been doing that I just sort of, like, exploded into a different type of musician, um, which then allowed me to be strong enough to go back for who I
Oh,
had been.
oh, I kind of hear that. It's like the I've been beat down so much, I don't give a flying fart. I'm a mom,
Yeah,
but we can say fuck. I don't give
we
a flying
can't.
fuck.
Let's say
N
it.
Earmuffs, children. Um, and, that's when the magic comes out of that voice because the sensor's down.
And I
There's
had
nothing
nothing to
left to care.
lose. I had
You have
nothing to
nothing.
lose. I was like, "It's all the bad shit you worry about happening, it already happened." You
It
know what
already
I mean?
happened.
I already have been told I don't hear pitch, I can't sing, I'm not good enough. Joss told me I wasn't good enough to sing my own songs. My
Oh, boy.
parents were so abusive about my work. My mom continues to be really, really difficult with me. And I just was like, "Fuck it." You know what I mean?
Fuck it.
Like brute force, like, just, you know,
Yeah.
and that kind of abandon really sort of lifted the car off the baby, I think. It
Mhm.
just helped me to, like, move into a different space, take a break from, if you look at it the same problem for too long, it doesn't get better.
No.
You just find
No,
other
you're
things
just
wrong
swimming
with
in
it.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where
Yeah.
I had been with my solo work, and it took me being away for a while and having these other experiences and using my body and my voice and my advocacy in a different way,
Mhm.
so that I could trust myself again and trust what I
Wow.
knew about myself and my voice, and then go back and be like, "All right, girls, here we
Yeah.
go."
Yeah. That's so big. That's so big is coming back to the inner, right? There's
Yeah,
so many messages out here about what we should do and shouldn't do, and like you said, simultaneously too much and not enough. Like
the
how does
story of being
one
a woman.
navigate? Isn't that the truth though?
Yes,
Wow. Well
yes,
played. Yes,
yeah.
it is.
It's
It's
the
like
double bind. You're too much and not enough. It's like, great.
oh,
Where do we live in that? You know?
we live
I
in the fuck it. We live in the fuck it zone. That's where we have to
I'm
live.
gonna be way too fucking much. Like that's where I went. I was like, "Oh, yeah?" You know what I mean? "You thought I was too much over here? Wait for
Well,
it."
Well, if I might say, and not that my opinion matters, but you are a fucking singer, and you are a great, great singer.
Thank you.
If I can just go on a tangent for a second, my husband and I just had a baby, and we've kind of put our albums on the shelf for a while, and I'm a
Sure.
perfectionist, and I've really put it on the shelf, and after listening to Pocket Sized Friend over and over and over again, we lit that sucker back up. We're like, "Let's go."
Yes! I love hearing that.
"Life is too short, make the art." That's one of yours, and I
That
was
is
like,
one of mine.
"Damn, yes.
Yeah. It doesn't
Make it."
all that outside shit can't win, and that was
No.
really where I had to get to make this record and to write this book. And was there
Mhm.
fear about releasing it and being sued and, this, that, and the other thing? And I was like, "Yeah, do it anyway.
Yeah,
Here we go."
do it
Like,
anyway. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't wanna have lived a life where I was too afraid to talk about my own experience. I mean, The world
Oh,
needs the stories of women. I want to say that again. The world
yes.
needs the stories of women, especially women in the arts and women in music, women who are
Yes.
not famous, but who are out here making work. Like, do you know what it's like to go into a memoir section and look at the music books that are there? It's literally 45 books by or about Bob Dylan. And I'm like, I think we got it covered. I think we
Oh
covered Dylan.
god.
You know what I mean? Like, what else is
That's
there to be
amazing.
said? Like,
Right.
what else happened in the world in the last 75 years? Like, let's give it a look, you know? So I felt really
Wow.
strongly about like
Mhm.
documenting some of my lived experience, not because it's extraordinary, but because it's true and because I have done these sort of weird not everybody in the world has made records with Steve Albini. I have, you know,
Yeah,
and
that's
and
friggin' cool.
and
That's
nobody talks
really
about
cool.
the women who make records with Steve Albini. We're still talking about Kurt Cobain 100 years later. So it's important
Yeah,
to talk about what
I
else
love
has
you.
happened in these studios.
Yes, the women's voices, damn straight, like, that is so I imagine coming back to your solo project with this new we're gonna call it the "fuck it" voice.
That's right.
Talk about that experience. Talk about that because your voice first of all, I wanna know who your influences are because I'm hearing a lot of, like, really cool '90s vibes in there, but maybe
Yeah.
I'm just putting that on that?
No, that's
I
true.
don't know. So
That's
tell
true.
me about because I love the '90s. I'm a '90s girl. So you
Yeah.
tell me the fucking voice and the influences and how they came together for this solo album.
Well, the Fuck It voice really was just like it was born over a couple years in Friendship Commanders. The early Friendship Commander stuff was kind of punk leaning, which was great and fun. And then Trump got elected and nothing
Oh
was
god.
fun anymore here in
Yeah.
America. It was a very
Yeah.
heavy and specifically, I live in Tennessee in America, which is like a very Trump
Yeah.
space and
Mhm.
a very very heavy. Like I wrote the record we made with Albini and things. I just started to embody this space with my voice of being like I want to sing with my whole body and I don't care. I used to care so much if it was pretty or if it was appealing or if it was any of that.
Mm.
And it started to be more important to me that it be felt the
Yes.
way that I had written the work and not have to like live in this cage of being attractive and that goes across a lot of different areas, right? Like the way we look as
Mhm.
well. Like I just started to be like, this can't matter at all in this new work. And so the fuck it voice, I think started to live in that Albini record. And then by the time we were
Mm.
making Hold On to Yourself, I was like hulking out in my own voice.
I love
And
it.
Conversations was this difficult thing where I had these 5 songs that I'd written when I was a prettier singer and when I was, just a more, I don't wanna use negative words to describe her, but there was a people-pleasing thing and there was a
Yeah.
gentleness to that, both the songwriting and the performance style,
Yeah.
and I had made demos. I have dozens and dozens of demos, of all of my work so that I've written something like 300 songs that I have records of, and it's important for me to have demo versions so I don't just forget all of my work forever because I'm never going to record all of it. So I had these beautiful demos that she had made back in the day, and I thought, God, I can't sing. I can't even sing like this anymore. I don't,
Wow.
it felt like getting into old clothes.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I had to really negotiate with my voice during the tracking of that album and like invite her into the space and be like, okay, like, these songs have to not be sung hugely because they weren't written to be sung hugely, and I still think that's true to honor the way they were written, but it was
Mhm.
very difficult for me to sing those songs, and then on the other ones, which are like Pocket Sized Friend and Deadbolt and The Alcoholics Wish You Well, I just got to, like, play and be freer and bigger than
Yeah.
like, just to sing the way that I sing now, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. That was another one of my favorites, The Alcoholics Wish You Well. I was like, "Damn. Alright.
The
Game
song
on."
title to end all song titles.
Yeah, exactly. So, so good.
I said to my
Wow.
partner, like, "Am I allowed to use this song title?" Like, when I wrote that song, he was like, "We'll see," I was like, "It seems really off limits," but, yeah, so I really had to, like, come back with the fuck it voice, but also, like, honor who she had been because that was the whole point of the
Mhm.
story was to not
Mhm.
have shame that was so profound that I couldn't sing the songs the way they had been written, you know?
Mm.
I had to sing both ways.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So you found new levels in your singing voice, and from what I gather as well, reading the lyrics, you found new levels in your lyric writing,
Yeah.
and then you found this book,
Then I wrote a
which
book.
is just, like, the next level. Like, I'm serious. I'm thinking as a songwriter, writing a book is way more vulnerable, and I mean that with the most love to the songs. It's
Oh,
vulnerable
it's
because you're
way more
naming people,
vulnerable.
you're naming places, you're naming details, you can sing about the yous in your song and be pretty honest, but when
Yeah.
you name somebody in a book, damn. So,
Yeah.
does that also take your songwriting to the next level now with looking
Oh, yeah.
forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I think it's changed everything. I think putting this work forth has freed me up, but I also think that it's, like, leveled me up as far as, like, the kind of output that I want to make, you know?
Mhm.
I do think that writing this was, like, pivotal, which I didn't know it
Yeah.
would be when I got into it, but, um, I've never made anything that I have been this, like, calm about freeing myself from. Like, I usually really struggle with releases, and I feel the absences of my family or whatever friends can't hang, and this
Yeah.
time around, I was like, "I'm so proud of this. I don't care what
It's
anybody else is doing."
it's so good. I hope that more artists take this on. I'm like, this is the behind the scenes we always wanted to know about songs, right? This is it.
Thank you.
And written by, the author and the artist themselves is like, forget those 44 Bob Dylan books, like, written by somebody else,
What a
you
topic.
know?
People are like, "We need to keep writing about Bob Dylan, guys," and I'm like, "Do we?" No shade to Bob
Apparently.
Dylan, but it's a really we've covered it.
He's
We
probably
did it.
like, "Guys, move on, like,
I
there's
know.
other things," but
It's
oh my gosh.
incredible.
Oh my gosh. Wow, so there's so much to talk to you about, and I really mean that. But I'm going to hit something here.
'Kay.
The Grammys. Now,
Yeah.
as singers, we're kind of fed the notion that if you don't win a Grammy, you are not top of the game.
Yep.
You've been there and
I
you're
have.
on the other side, and I think I know what you're gonna say, but I want you to tell me, did the Grammy change anything for you in terms of how you feel about yourself and your voice?
Not in the moment. In the moment, it was really I hadn't told anybody that I had even done that project with Joss. I think
Mhm.
a handful of people knew I had spent something like the initial sessions where I was going over and writing the album in England, and we did that
Yeah.
first terrible round of sessions. Such a bad experience. That happened over, like, 4 months, so I was
Wow.
gone for a long time, but I had
Mhm.
also just moved away from my whole life in Brooklyn, New York, so I was in Nashville, and I was kind of an unknown. I didn't know many people here, so the fact that I was
Mhm.
gone was of no great, you know, shakes to anybody, but, I mean, I really didn't even tell my brother's father that we had even been nominated, so the night
Oh,
that we
wow.
won the Grammys and I told my parental figures that I had won a Gra at that time, it was 1 Grammy. We didn't find out about the 2nd until months later. Um, they were like, "What?" Like, I don't think people
Wow.
understood, and so I didn't really tell anybody that that had happened, and I just sort of was like, "Oh, I'm trying to get away from this relationship and this project, so I'm just gonna kinda downplay this." Because answering questions
Hmm.
about working with celebrities is a very people kind of tell you the answer they would like to hear, you know, instead of
Yeah. Yeah, it
hearing
was
what
magical.
you yeah, they think it's magical. Great. Um, so it wasn't for a very, very long time that it was maybe last year that I
Mhm.
finally was like I had returned to my solo work before conversations with a couple of singles, kind of just being like, "I'm just gonna" and I wrote a song about my panic attacks that I started getting when I was working with Joss called All My Failures. And
Wow.
I wrote an essay about it for brevity, and, Allison K. Williams edited it, and at the very bottom, I
We
said
know her.
something like yeah, I know you do. Hi, Allison.
Hi,
Um,
Allison.
I said something at the bottom of my bio, like, she also has 2 Grammy Awards, related to her, whatever. I said something kind of dismissive about what I had done. And when the piece ran, it said Buick Audra is a Grammy Award-winning musician and writer living in Nashville, Tennessee, and Allison K. Williams is the one who did that.
I bet she is. She's like, "Why the hell is this at the bottom?"
Yeah, she was like, "We lead with
Boom.
this." Yeah. Yeah, and I started to be like,
Mm,
"Why do I still have so much shame about that?" And now I'm really proud of it, and, I feel like it belongs to me regardless of my associations, you know? I
yeah,
still did the work, so
yeah. Well, that's awesome that you reached out to someone like Allison. For those of you who didn't see our episode, we had one with Allison a few back, and she's an editor extraordinaire.
she
So
is.
tell me about that experience. I know we're focusing on the book again, but
No.
tell me about that experience with working with an editor. Like, I know for a lot of us, at first, we're like, "Is this any good?"
It was my very first time.
Yeah.
I had published one essay in Talk House about a song that Friendship Commanders had released 6 months before about the murder of an indigenous man named Stone Child Chiefstick. We have a song called Stone Child. And I
Mm,
published an essay about recording that song for Talk House, and they didn't edit it at all. They just put it up
mhm,
the way I had written it.
mhm,
So sending my pitch into Brevity about writing a song about having panic attacks and working toward I was in the middle of writing the memoir,
mhm.
it was interesting because I was like, "Am I a writer?" I was back in that space of like, that used to be, "Am I a singer?" And now I was like, "I think I write." Like I'm
Yeah.
writing this set of essays and I've written this one essay about these panic attacks and making this recording, and she was like, "This is great." And she gave me a couple notes. I think she moved a paragraph. I think she had one like expand on this here, maybe a couple word changes, but it was fairly marginal. And I did the
Nice.
changes that were suggested and I sent it in and it ran. So it was this really light touch that was encouraging for me because I totally understood the changes that she suggested.
Yeah.
Um, but otherwise, it was encouraging for me because I was like, "Oh, I wrote this and it ran." It
Wow.
wasn't like, "Let's start with how you structure an essay." Like, that was already there. So it was
Yeah.
cool, and she considers herself the unkind editor,
Yeah.
and she was very kind to me, which I took as a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
She
know?
says, "I like to be the teacher that pushes the ones that, shine and pushes them because
Yeah.
I see that they're shining and I know they can go,"
Yeah.
which is
So
cool.
it was very easy to do, and I was honored to have the piece in Brevity, and that was really
Mhm.
sort of the beginning of this type of work that I'm now making, which is like releasing the music with a literary piece, with
Yeah.
prose.
Yeah.
Um, so that was how that went.
Awesome. This is so good. So, yeah, I kinda glanced over the Grammy. Was it the brass ring you thought you always wanted, and did it fulfill? I imagine not, but let's really get out there and get honest about this conversation with folks who think it's gonna change everything and make their life better.
Perhaps if I had been there, like,
Yeah.
we won on a compilation. So compilations, the artists don't go, just Ken Levitan or whatever his
Oh,
name
that's
is went.
sad.
I
No.
know. So none of us were there. And
Oh.
she texted me the next morning about it or something. But um, I think the experience of attending the Grammys and then winning would be a very different thing because I didn't
Yeah.
um, no, it wasn't like a brass ring thing, and I also didn't really know how to metabolize it into my career at that point. It just felt like
Right.
this sort of strange, and people are so cruel. People were like, "Oh, you're lucky to have had that experience," or "You're lucky to," you know, people
Rationalizing in
love
a way. Yeah.
people love to tell women they're lucky. Let me tell you what, like, people tell me I'm lucky to be with the man I'm with. People used to tell me I was lucky to have the stepfather I did. These are
Wow.
ways of minimizing the work, the existence, and the value of women.
Yeah.
And I really don't have any space for that today. I won the Grammy because I spent 4 months in England and I sang that song at 7 in the morning and we
Yeah.
won. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Nice. There it is.
I'm not
And
gonna be
life goes
called
on.
unlucky. Yeah.
Yeah. Life
But it
goes
didn't
on.
it didn't change my life until years later, and then it started to open some doors because it is
Cool.
a piece that other people take very seriously in the industry, and so when I started
Right.
using it in my bio, which I have done now for about a year and a half, it has started to change things, you know?
Well, that's cool because it hasn't what I'm getting from what you're saying is it hasn't changed your self-worth as a person. It's just something
Yeah,
cool and shiny that people go, "Ooh,
yeah,
okay, cool. Right on." And it's on the
exactly.
outside. Yeah,
It's on
I
the
love it.
outside. It doesn't it's I literally don't know where they are.
I beg
They're
all of the singers listening to listen to that because there's so much around the self-worth and the awards,
yeah.
and if we don't have them, then we're not good or whatever. So, I'm so glad that we had this conversation. This is a big one. How has
Agree.
this experience changed your speaking voice? This is the
Mm.
trifecta. So, we're sitting here talking about your projects. I mean, you could sing your answers at me, but here we are talking them. How has this affected that or in positive and negative? I don't know.
My physical speaking voice or the
Yeah.
way that I articulate things?
How about both? How about if you see things in both? Let's go there because, the voice is connected. That's what we're all about here. So let's just
Well,
see.
I used to not be able to speak in front of 4 people at a microphone, so, I have terrible
Mm,
stage fright, first of all, still to this
mhm.
day, terrible, terrible stage fright no matter what. So speaking in front of other people and I understand your question is not just about public speaking, but speaking at all.
Yeah.
But that was always really difficult for me. And I've sort of worked the speaking part out as far as speaking publicly. I've now done a good bit of it in the last bunch of years. Um, I think I think I'm more articulate, as a result of, like, having written this book. I think that it ironed some stuff out for me. I also
Mhm.
will say
Mm,
as a memoir writer and as a writer, this might be of some interest to some people, and I see that question about my musical influences, and I haven't answered your question about that either.
that's okay.
Um, I read my book out loud in every stage of the writing and editing. So I wanted my book to sound the way that I sound when I'm speaking to you right now. So
Oh, I
I
love
wanted
that.
it to be casual and conversational and like you could sit down with it and feel like someone was speaking with you instead
Yeah.
of something really academic or overly intellectual.
Oh,
Um, but beyond that, I don't know. I feel like I haven't really been paying attention to that. But writing the book definitely made the situations clearer for me, and I can speak about
yeah.
them with a little bit more sort of clarity.
I love that.
Mm.
Has the "fuck it" transformed over to the speaking, or is that
Oh,
still for
yeah.
the singing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
for
That makes
sure.
me happy. Um, that makes me so happy. Not that there's a right answer. There isn't. I'm just very curious. So we have a question. Ooh, Echo Drop Productions. I'd love to know who some of your earliest musical influences were. Yes, me too. Big time.
Um,
Thank you for your question.
let's see, a lot of really cool, amazing women. Ricky Lee Jones is probably, like, my earliest, major influence that I can think of, and I still think that Ricky Lee is, like, maybe the greatest songwriter of our time, and
Oh,
also has an amazing book out called Last Chance Texaco that everybody should get and read. Um, Sean Colvin was a huge deal for me when I first heard
knew
her
it.
work.
Yep.
I felt like, "Holy shit, this woman," just I just
Yep.
love her work. You were talking about the '90s, so
Yeah.
in a singing regard, Chris Cornell and Lane Staley are probably 2 of my most important vocalists that have ever stood at mics. The power
Mhm.
with the soulfulness, with the ability to be vulnerable, I think is
Oh,
a really incredible
mhm.
set of traits.
Yep.
Um, what else? I love actually R&B music, so I think I mentioned her in my book, I'm a huge Mariah Carey fan.
Yeah,
Um,
girl.
I love, vocal R&B, and when I am on my own, mostly listen to either, like, heavy grunge music or R&B.
I love that. I knew we're gonna have to be friends because that's me too. I gravitate between, like, the Chris Cornells, the Pearl Jams, all that kinda good stuff, and Alanis, and then Mariah, of course.
JoJo. Yeah, totally.
Yes, Jojo.
And I feel like there's so much crossover. I mean, you can hear Lane and Chris specifically
Yeah,
as members of, like, a grunge sort of male space.
yeah,
They're so R&B leaning in the way that they
yeah,
phrase things. So, I feel like they're not that far apart. People laugh when I say I listen to R&B, and I'm like, "I'm there's no word of a lie.
mhm.
I listen to Aaliyah all the time."
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not that
And
far
it's
apart,
great
right?
songwriting, and
Yeah.
I've been accused of writing big choruses. It comes from R&B.
For sure it
Absolutely.
does. Big
Yeah.
choruses, and who doesn't want that? I was just watching a Berkeley production course, and they said, like, get if you get people singing in your chorus because it's big and exciting, that's a good sign. Like,
Yeah.
it we need to do that. It's spreading joy. It's super cool.
Yep.
Um, will there be an audiobook?
Oh gosh, I'm so glad you asked. People have been asking me
Yeah.
about that, and I will say, yes, I haven't started it. It was such a
Okay.
push to get the print book actually done and made. I'd never
Yeah.
done that before, and it was a real baptism of fire. But, yeah, I would love to do that. Audiobook recording is a whole other world where I like
Mhm.
have to have some sort of booth or closet that I don't yet
Yeah.
have set up, but I would love to do
Mhm.
that because
Oh, that's cool.
because I did read the book out loud 70 plus times to myself. I
Yeah.
can almost sit here and recite it to you now.
Wow, so it's already there. It's already there. We just need the studio, if you will.
But
Do you
yeah,
have
I know
Yeah.
most sentences very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that something that you have, a home studio, or do you always prefer
Yes.
to go out? Yeah, you have one. Okay,
Oh,
so you just
yeah.
need a couple add-ons. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a home studio here, and for both Friendship Commanders and my solo work, my
Awesome.
vocals are always not always. Steve Albini recorded the vocals for Bill, but, I tend to record myself, and I have my own vocal setup here. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. How has that changed your experience as a vocalist, being able to record in your home at any time?
It's so freeing, and it has made me such a better singer to be able to have just the mobility with my own voice and to try things fearlessly and not have to. For anybody who hasn't read my book, I went through an incredible amount of trauma with thinking I
Mhm.
couldn't hear or sing, and recording became wrapped up in that, and I really had a lot of fear around tracking vocals, and so I stopped doing it with other people until we worked with Albini. So I recorded myself for a long time. I still love to record myself, but I won't only do it now. It's just what tends to happen.
Mhm.
But I find it such an incredible gift to be able to throw different things at the wall and decide for myself what I love and not be, sometimes I'll ask Jerry, like, "What do you prefer, this or this?" I'll get some feedback, but it isn't
Yeah.
this thing of like, "Tell me if I'm good or if I'm tone deaf or if I'm,"
Good.
500
Yeah.
other things that I might possibly be identifying as problematic. Like,
Mhm.
I won't go to that space and never again. And I have said to many male recording engineers, like, "You should read my book. You should read my book and learn what not to do."
Oh, that's so good. Yes. Yes, because that's in there. Oh my
Sure
goodness.
is.
Yeah, it's so in there. You are just awesome. I can't say enough
How are
wonderful
you?
things about you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Um, I'm gonna leave you with the last word. Is there anything that we haven't hit on that you wanna hit on? Or I know I hate when people do this, but I'm gonna do it. Is there anything we need to circle back to? Because this is such a huge and amazing body of work.
Thank you.
And it's so important in so many ways, I think, that
Thank you.
people need to look at when you're an artist, you're taught to pick a vein and go, right? You can't be an author and a singer and a whatever, right? You
Yeah,
you have to pick one. Um, and I love that you didn't do that. So,
sure
not
didn't.
that that's where we need to go, but what comes to mind for you, Buick, about our final word, if you will?
Well, thank you for all the kind things that you've said. If I haven't said thank you in real
Oh,
time,
my pleasure.
it means so much to me, especially
Yeah,
from another artist.
yeah.
Um, I just want to say that, like, I come from a space where nobody told me to listen to myself or to believe in myself. And I know it sounds incredibly trite, but I have been asked in interviews, like, what do you hope people will get from the work? And I'm like, courage,
Mm. Oh,
take
yeah.
heart. Take heart, you're
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless of what has happened to you, you're in there. And and as far as, like, being a multi-genre or multi what am I now? Medium? I don't know what's happening, but
I love
as
it.
far as being a musician and a writer,
Yeah.
like, to thine own self be true. Like, it when
Yeah.
I started listening to myself, when I started listening to the music that was coming through, when I started listening to my gut when I started listening to the nudges that were like, "This is bigger than the album. This is it at the very least, a pile of essays, maybe a book."
Mhm.
Those threads and where they have taken me have been more profound and, to use a very overused word, healing than any of the stuff that other people have tried to throw at my story in my lifetime. It didn't come from the outside. The Grammys didn't do it. All the other shit doesn't do it. It's really nice to hear from real people that the work connects, and that's what
Yeah.
matters. But it mattered to me before it got to them. And that was the first time I was able to say that. So
Yeah.
belong to yourself. Like, you know the truth, whether you've been told to trust that or not, you know the truth.
Oh, that is so I'm just gonna go on and on and on about that. It's so deliciously good. It is. It has to matter to you, and we don't if somebody else likes it on the outside, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's icing. That's the floured icing on the already iced cake. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But the cake is fucking good without the flowers. So, as long as you are happy about it and you feel like you have to make that art and you show up and you make that art, I think that's what we're saying here is that's the point.
And
That's the
then
point.
and then all this other terrible stuff that we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, or the vodcast, I'm sorry.
Mhm,
The self-promotion and all this other stuff that also people don't like when women do. I've learned the hard
mhm,
way. People think it's ugly when women promote themselves. They don't care at all. When cis men promote themselves, it seems normal. Um,
mhm,
all this
mhm.
other stuff is made easier because I believe in this work. So I'm not like,
Right.
"Oh, can you kind sir, can you tell me
Yeah,
if my work is good enough?" I'm like, "Hey, this is this thing that I've done. These are the sort of specs about it.
yeah.
This is I don't I'm not asking you for permission to exist in this world. This is the work. It's either for you or it's not, but I am not showing up to things today. Thank God I'm not showing up to things asking for permission to be good, asking for permission to make my work or to take up space. Enough. Like, that
Oh,
box was checked. It's over, you know?
there's so many people, and myself included, that need to hear that because we don't need permission to exist.
No.
Everybody, if you take one thing from today, that and that those little nudges that we get, those soul nudges. I mean, first of all, the nudge to sing and be an artist, it's never going away. We talk about that all the time on the show. It's never going away, and we don't want it to, so we might as well do something about it.
Yeah.
So, following that, Buick is beautifully outlined that it's taken her to places in her life that feel so wonderful, and are, not rainbow and unicorn, but soulful.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Yeah.
Girl, why is it 1 o'clock? Okay. Well, yeah, you keep us posted on anything that you do, and everybody else
Yeah.
that's watching, you can find Buick on buickaudra.com or friendshipcommandersband.com. We can
Yeah.
also connect with you on socials. You're everywhere, which is super cool. So I've written them there,
Thank you
at Buick
so
Audra
much.
for Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which I loved. And at Buick
I talk
Audra
a lot of
Music
shit
on
on
Facebook.
TikTok.
I freaking that's where I got the congratulations thing from. I was like, "Damn, this woman speaks the truth. I want her on my show." And the album, we can also get it, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Now, can we get the book on those platforms as well?
The book, so if you wanna buy the music with the book, you can do that on my Bandcamp, or it is actually
Great.
globally distributed now. You can now get it on Amazon or Barnes& and Noble or any of those other sites. I wanted to
Wonderful.
handle the pre-order season myself so that I could make sure that the music was part of that story, but at a certain point, it was time to be like, "Go get the book. You can find the music wherever you find your music."
I love it. We have one final word from Echo Drop. Fucking A. I'm sure it's the
Okay.
takeaways that we had at the end. Thank you for watching and for commenting. I appreciate that. Well, Buick, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. I know I will. I'm gonna be skipping down the hill to my house and playing with my kids before I have to teach them lessons. So this is
Awesome.
super cool, super inspiring, and I hope to have you back one day. Keep us posted on what you're doing.
I'll be back. Thanks so much, Jen.
Thanks, love. I want more. to I'm gonna be so selfish. I want more, but we are at time. So, and mama's gotta get the kiddos. So, thank you so much for watching, for all your questions and comments. You can catch us at random times right now. We're kind of building the show, but you can always find out more about us and where to find us on our website, voxsana.co. And I'm going to throw up our Facebook as well. Eventually, I'll get on Instagram. I'm working on the socials. I'm not good at them, but I'm working on it. So, Facebook at voxana.co. Yeah, so there we are. That was Buick Audra. She was phenomenal bright light in this world. And I hope you found some inspiration from our talk. And yeah, I will be in touch with the next episode on those platforms. So, stay tuned. And this is me being my own producer. I'm going to do the outro song now. Stay well, everybody.